Hello, and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. Micah, how are you this morning?
Full of Christmas cheer. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Just bubbling over with gregarious outbursts as usual. All right, so we're going to be doing things a little bit different. You'll see some things that are happening new in the Max Revenue world. This is still going to be our kind of flagship going forward, but we're going to give it a little name, and then we're going to also add in new podcasts under the Max Revenue umbrella as well. So this podcast is still the Max Revenue Show, but our segment or this series with Micah is now called Your First Million with Micah Salas, with the gist being this is Micah in the trenches, and this is to help other producers in the trenches with the blocking and the tackling and like how to build your book of business from 0 to 1 million. And then we've got another podcast series that we're rolling out calling Top Producers Podcast, where it's the heavy hitters, people with $1 million books, 2 million, 5 million, $10 million books. And so we're talking with them about their journey, how they got there. Obviously, Micah qualifies for that because he's built multiple $1 million books. But, we're rolling out some different assets under the Max Revenue umbrella. And this one is now Your First Million with Micah Salas. So, Micah, welcome to the first episode.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm glad I qualified for this one. Maybe one day I'll qualify for the Top Producers podcast, but
I may have you on one day. We'll see how you play your cards.
gosh, fingers crossed. That's my Christmas wish in 2026.
I know. Waiting on bated breath. All right. This episode is called How to Handle Tough Insurance Renewals Without Losing Your Client. But before we get into that, let's go to today's sponsor, this episode's sponsor, Insurance Xdate. Insurance Xdate is where new business begins. Industry relevant data delivered on a software platform built for sales, not research. Identify and engage with prospects in minutes. Keep track of your opportunities and get production done. Generate leads, win new biz with Insurance Xdate. All right, Micah, tell us how to navigate tough renewals.
Man, I wish I had a crystal ball. Yeah, I've handled a few of them. I want to share. Let me start with a story. So I have a pretty large account. Premium is, let's just call it roughly 400,000, 450,000 in that range.
Pause. Will you undo your
I don't have my blur on, do I?
Yeah, you do.
You're asking me to do that live on the air. I don't know.
Sorry.
Let's see, background effects. Wow, can I do something else? Can I do Christmas or no?
I would prefer you not do anything.
Okay. Let's see.
Actually, we could both go Christmas. Let's both go Christmas. Your head's in the top of the frame.
Right here, it's in the top. Okay. Sorry, everyone. This is a real professional production here.
Yeah, my apologies for interrupting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, back to the Christmas story. Prospects roughly paying, let's just call it 400,000. The guy hates insurance. Every year, costs are going up through the roof, and he always wants to be paying less, right? Like most of our clients. So the hard part on this deal is it's a very kind of it's in a market where there's not a ton of carriers that will write it. So I don't really have a ton of options. I took it over 3 years ago, and we've kept it with the same carrier. We try looking around, but there's just not a lot of options out there. So that kind of makes it tough as well, where it's like typically I feel a lot less stress if I can just go market aggressively and then show the client like, hey, here's the 10 places I went or whatever. But on this deal, it's like there's maybe one or two others besides the one we're with. So kind of, you could say that's stress relieving, but it's also kind of stressful because just don't have a lot of options, right? So we're coming on the renewal, and basically the underwriter comes out with I'll just tell you kind of what happened at the end, and then I'll reverse engineer, take you back to the beginning. Underwriter comes out, hey, we're only up 13% this year. Now, underwriters on the auto, right? That's the biggest piece, but everything else is flat. Well, the auto's making up a third of the account. So the part that frustrates me with underwriters is that they speak in like only X percent. But when you're looking at real dollars, that's where it's like, okay, you can say it's only up, on the account as a whole, 9%, 10%. The problem is that's $45,000. It's a pretty big nut to pass along. You know what I'm saying? So I get that number, and that's kind of where I was last week. I was like, holy cow. And the one market I had that we could go to outside of who we're with basically said, hey, sorry, we looked at this. We just can't quote it this year. Maybe next year, I think we could if we had more time. There's something, a new location going up. We got to wait till that's done. And next year we'd be a player. So that's where I was sitting last week. I'm like, great, got to deliver a $45,000 increase. My one option I had outside my current is dead. And this will be a fun call. So I think we've all found ourselves in this situation. So here's some things that I think that you can do as a producer. I'll kind of run through them quick, and then I'll we can go back into it. But the first thing is start the process early, right? Second thing, set expectations, be realistic, 90 days in advance. And so the client's not sitting there 9 days out getting the news. Third thing, communicate throughout the process. This is something I think a lot of producers don't do that I've learned to start doing the last couple of years, especially probably 2020 when it started getting real tough, 2019, some crazy high renewals. I'm just going to share with you what I'm getting in as I'm getting it real time. So that's kind of my next point. Was that fourth? Share the first price. Talk more about that. Why to do that, and then the next one I had that was already one, two, three, four. Next one, fifth, push back for options. This is kind of an obvious one, but I'll talk about maybe how to do that with an underwriter. And then the last point, number six, share obviously relevant data. Right, get them outside their bubble. So Trey, I know you like odd numbers, but we could add a bonus tip out there or something because I can't think of a seventh.
Nah, we'll give it. We'll call it a bonus. It's all good.
Okay. All right. So let's talk starting early. The main thing here, this is so obvious, but this is what happens, right? You should start 120 days out. The reason why is what I mean by 120 days out, you should in your inbox have all the renewal stuff that you need to gather from the client. So you should have your exposure data worksheet, your renewal apps, all of that stuff you should have in your inbox. So then you can reach out to the client and instead of time to gather that information, right? And your goal should be to gather that in the next 30 days, right? Worst case scenario. So you're sending it back to your team to get out to market 90 days out. The reason I like to start early because time gets away, right? Especially holiday renewals. Like this is a mid-January renewal, about a week after the New Year's. And it's just time evaporates so quick. You're sitting there in September, like, oh, we're good. Then all of a sudden, like it's Halloween. You're finally like, oh shoot, I still got to get the submission out. All of a sudden, you're getting it out early November, and you're sitting here, and just time just is going so fast. So start that process early, but control it as well. So don't just flip it over to the client. You should control it. Mr. Business Owner, can we set a time? I need 30 minutes to just basically get some updated information. What I like to do on this process here is I pre-fill the application based on last year's as much as I can. I don't sign it or anything, obviously, but I go into that meeting really prepared so we can knock it out in 30 minutes. This is not necessarily a meeting where we're BSing, making small talk. The goal is let's get the data that we need so we can properly market your account, right? I think one of the other things you can do here is a good question to ask is, hey, what have you guys I'm going to remarket this year, Mr. Business Owner. Tell me some things that you guys have done over the last 12 months, some positive things that I can maybe highlight as we go out to market. What are you doing differently? Why would an underwriter say, yep, that's an account I want to write? And so that's a good question to ask. It also positions you as being proactive and aggressively being like, hey, I'm still looking out for your business regardless. So that's really important. And I want to make one distinction here is when I say start early, this and having this info gathering meeting, it's not the same necessarily as a pre-renewal strategy meeting. Now it can be, so don't feel like you have to do two separate meetings. You can have one meeting, but that's totally your call. What I kind of do a lot of times is at the 120-day mark, I reach out and say, hey, I want to do a pre-renewal strategy meeting with the client, right? Talk about the renewal, talk about the market, make sure we're on the same page to give you guys the best chance of the best price. So when I have that conversation, it depends on the business owner. Some business owners want to be involved in the admin stuff or whatever, or sometimes they have a really good office manager or someone down the line who I can gather that information from. So when I say start early, you have your pre-renewal strategy meeting 120 days out roughly, and then sometime in the next 30 days, you are either getting that information from that business owner and you can make it all in one meeting, or from other people on their staff. But just don't send an email saying please update. That's just a surefire way to kind of lose an account eventually. Expectations. I don't do this at the gathering information. I do this at the pre-renewal strategy meeting. So this is where you would say, hey, this is where you bring in your market data. This is what's going on in the market. Now, a lot of the data out there is national data, so you got to be careful. Like in Texas, rates, if national data is saying 7% increase and I'm having an account in Houston, that might be 15%. Right. So you got to be mindful of this kind of stuff. Don't just come out there with national numbers and saying, oh, look at all this. This will be great, because that might not be a true depiction of the market that you're in. So I always just like to bring it. It's just, I think, again, it shows you're being proactive. Your head's in the market. You're thinking. And then talk prior to this call. Talk with your market. Your underwriter. Hey, what are you thinking for this renewal? I know we're 4 months out, but what have you? What are you guys thinking about? Where do you think you'll be? I want to have a first meeting with my client. Kind of lay the groundwork. So that's where you should be having those conversations. Okay, and you can chime in anytime you want, Trey. But if
I'm just listening.
Okay.
And watching squirrels run around outside.
Hey, man, that's awesome. We had a squirrel jump in our shed last week. I was out there playing with my son and my daughter, and all of a sudden, like, our shed kind of like creeps open. The doors kind of like hinge slightly open. I see this bushy little thing over the top. I was like, dude, that's a squirrel. And my kids freak out, and I was like kind of scared myself. And I'm like, trying to like,
Scared of a squirrel?
dude, rabies. I don't know, they jump at you. I don't know. Anyways, it's in this little shed, and I finally like I open it up and I run back like 10 feet, and then I grab a flat. Tori's like, grab a flashlight. I get a
What?
flashlight,
You've
and
never seen a squirrel, bro?
no, in like a confined space. It'd be like if you had a bird in your house. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, have you got a bird in your
Oh,
house? It's kind of scary, dude. It's scary. Don't deny it. Are you,
oh
hold on.
my God.
Are you telling me if you had a bird in your house, you wouldn't be scared?
I had a
Like,
bird in my house. Remind me to tell you a story off air. It's not
okay,
suitable for work about it's at the end of my drinking days about a bird getting in my house. It's a great one.
okay. Well, it's that same. When I say scared, it's not like, oh my God, but it's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like you're whatever.
Lewis, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. All right, I'll tell you off air.
Okay, so I got to the first two. Start early. Set expectations. Point three: communicate throughout the process. This is something we don't do. So you could do that great first pre-renewal strategy meeting. You get your information, then you go silent, and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks out. Hey, just want to see if we can meet up. You can do that, but man, it just feels like 60 days feels like a long time, right? Even 45 days to have no communication. And so and maybe it's my style. Not saying you got to set meetings, but just shoot emails to the client like, hey, just FYI, we got a couple. This is some feedback we're getting. Still working on this. Still aiming for this target date. That's all you got to do, and it's got to be just one or two, you know, contacts. It could be a phone, a text, an email. Just start doing that. I think it'll changes the renewal experience big time and how your clients perceive you. This next point I think is really important. Share the first price. Here's why. Clients, if you just let's say, okay, we get our first price from the underwriter, right? It's up 10%. You want them to be at 6%. So you go back to the underwriter, you're pushing back, you're doing a good job, you're saying, hey, what about this? And they're good here. And the underwriter's like, okay, we'll come down to 7%. Awesome. Now you go meet with the client, you show them, hey, here's your increase this year. It's only 7%. Well, what one of two things might happen. The client, could be like, okay, great, that's fine. But also they could be like, hey, can we push back? I really think we should be at 4%. And they don't see any of the work that you just did behind the scenes to get them to the 7%, which was already like the underwriter saying, this is our best and final offer. We can't go below this. So a lot of times the hard part with selling insurance is that there's no transparency behind the scenes when we're negotiating, right? So it's not like even like real estate where you got to make every offer you get, you got to present. This is different. So you don't have to present all these offers behind the scenes. But if you're not letting the clients know the starting point, then they don't see any of the work that you're doing behind the scenes. So that's when a client can start to think, well, they're not even negotiating, or I had to ask them to get that down. Or you could go to that meeting and say, hey, they originally came at 10%, I got them to 7. It doesn't have the same impact, in my opinion, as if you just show them the first price that you get. Now, when you show them the price, you'll say, hey, this is your final price, especially if it's ugly. You say, hey, keeping you in the loop, Mr. Business Owner, we're 4 weeks out. This is the pricing I'm getting. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're doing right now to make sure that comes down. And here's who else we're still talking to. Just don't want you to panic, but I want you to be aware where things are at. And to me, that's a huge deal. I've always get like people, thank you so much, really appreciate this. People just seem to like that. So I would do it. And then the last kind of piece when you're going back to the underwriter, when you're actually talking to the underwriter, if you don't have any other, of course, if you have other markets, that's one thing, right? Because you can use that as leverage. But let's just say everyone else bailed, you got one option, which happens in this tough markets, right, or tough risks. Well, basically there's a couple different ways you can go. You can say, hey, can we get this more in line with here? Here's what the market's doing. Of course, you're going to highlight all the good things. Their loss ratio, right? Hey, they're only at a 12% loss ratio. You're super profitable on this deal. Like, this is where the market's at. Can't we bridge that gap? You're going to do all that stuff. But also, this is where you can say, hey, if you're willing to come down another 4%, we can maybe get the client to take a $10,000 deductible versus 5,000, right? So kind of just look for other, because then that gives your client options, right? Then you can say, hey, you can pay on the inland marine, like this was in my situation on the equipment policy. I got the guy to come down about 15 grand, but he wanted to increase the deductible from 10 to 25,000. So it's kind of my client hates insurance. I think he'll like this option. But at least the client has options. It's like, hey, the price was basically flat, or you can get a $15,000 reduction if you want to take a higher deductible. You've had 0 losses over the last 5 years on this line of business, but I just want to give you the information. That's our role as brokers, as agents, to do that, right?
Side note, do you have a client who loves insurance?
No clients who love it. I do have clients who I would say, yeah, no one loves it. I think the starting point is like, don't mind it to hate it. You know?
That is
Yeah, there's no spectrum of like love, hate. It's hate. That could be like a little scale. Insurance.
coffee mode.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Just a simple like hand drawn line. Tolerate, hate in like a scale. Anyways, yeah, so what I was saying, pushing back for options, that can be anything, deductibles, whatever. They'll get a signed document that you want. I don't know what, every situation is so different. I'm not gonna try to speak to everyone's situation. And then the last thing I will share on this situation is share some relevant market data. Again, so you did that in the beginning on the pre-renewal strategy meeting, but now when it gets to the end of the deal, bring in maybe some other clients or prospects you've seen, right? Just like you kind of do on our due diligence. Hey, this is where other people are at on their auto. Here's 5 other clients I have. This is the price per vehicle. I know you're at 7 grand a vehicle, but everyone else is between 5 to 8, and you've had a couple losses, right? That's the kind of stuff that they want to see to help give them some sense of security. Like, okay, a little bonus tip on this one I will add is last year with the same underwriter, they tried to come out with their standard, 8% increase. I pushed back and they weren't really willing to budge. This year, I kind of added a little bit in there. I said, hey, I'm worried that if we don't come down, the client's going to leave us midterm, or basically next year, we're going to have a ton of competition. And I think we're at real risk for losing this account. Now, I don't throw that out every year all the time, but that is kind of my gut sense on this one. And so that's why I was like, because I just know, like I said, I don't have a lot of options. There is some direct writers in this space or some kind of niche programs for this line of business. So that kind of seemed to perk up the underwriters' ears and make them respond and help drop the premium. And so all in all, okay, so I'll close the story with this. First, they come out with basically about let's just call it a $40,000 increase. At this point, we either have a $10,000 increase or a $5,000 reduction, depending on what the client wants to do. That's where we're at today. That's where we presented. Client seems pretty happy, but I've done all those things I just shared with you is what I've done throughout this process and what I've done for other clients. And what it really ultimately should do, guys, you're never going to build $1 million book or a $2 million book or whatever size book if you're not retaining clients. So you've got to learn how to manage difficult renewals. In a soft market, it's easy. Hard market, especially year after year after year, where it's just constant increases, you got to think of some ways so they don't get vendor fatigue, right? That's a very real thing where people are just like, I just got to make a change to make a change, and that's the hardest thing as a broker, as an incumbent, is like, dude, there's like no one's going to do anything differently for you. Like I have all the right markets, I'm working hard for you, and people, but you got to put yourself in those buyers' shoes, and they're just thinking, man, I hear what you're saying, I like you, but I got to try something different, right? I mean, that's what people get to eventually, and so you got to do everything possible to offset that. And sometimes you're still going to lose accounts, right? I always like the slogan I heard from a guy. It's like, we don't own any of your clients. You're renting all of them. And it was when I heard that, I was like, man, that's so true. And it helped actually give me a lot of peace. Like, dude, because I'm sitting here stressed and think I got to keep every client for 30 years. Not going to happen, probably. Now, that'd be awesome. I'm not saying like I want to lose clients, but if you just can say to yourself, okay, my goal is I'm renting a client, I'm going to work as hard as I can and kind of plan on keeping them for hopefully, I think 5 to 7 years, maybe if you want to have a high goal though, like 10 years, hey, that's awesome. Like that's how you're going to really build a lot of wealth in this, but don't be disappointed if they leave after year 6 or 7 and you've done all you can, and you've checked all your boxes. And don't, like, sometimes I think we can over reflect or over analyze, like, what am I doing wrong? I got to change things. Like sometimes it is just vendor fatigue. That's a very real situation, kind of a psychological thing.
Are they in a premium size or like loss history track record to be a potential captive play?
Yes. Yep. And we've talked about that because he has a couple businesses, this client in particular, which I handle all of them. Power of cold calling. Got my first one. And this is where we talk about 3 stars that are 5 stars. Made a cold call. He has a construction business as well. Got in there. That was probably 20 in revenue. And then he had a third little business that's only about 5 in revenue. Got that. And then got the big one that's, just call it, 50,000 in revenue. And so, yes, combining all of them together, we've talked captives and doing all that. It's just a matter of timing. So I bring it up every year to him, but good point. And something you guys should be mindful of if you're listening, like be the one bringing up the captive. Don't wait for someone else to bring it up and then be on the defensive. Bring it up offensively. Even if someone's on the cusp, you think they're a little small, I would still always just bring it up proactively and let them make the decision if they don't want to pull the trigger or not. So
Threshold.
oh yeah, no doubt. And I should have mentioned that. So when you guys do your pre-renewal strategy meeting, that's like a perfect time, or like a mid-year meeting, to bring up proactive ideas, right? That's where you should come in and be like, hey, want to talk to you about the captive again? Is that something this year you want to take a crack at, right? Should we just run the numbers? Should we just see what it looks like? So yeah, no, great point. Good question.
So, what are your big plans for Christmas before we wrap this up?
Man, so we're not traveling, and I got to wrap presents. I got I got a dollhouse I got to put together for Lucia. Yeah, I haven't done any of that yet, so it's in the garage in a box. So I think like tonight, tomorrow night, I gotta put together a couple things, and then I gotta wrap them and drink some eggnog.
Do you drink
You
egg
love eggnog, dude.
with
That'd be
alcohol or without alcohol?
Oh no, 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 dude. I just drink it just plain eggnog. It's so good. Actually, back when I used to drink, I didn't like putting alcohol in eggnog. It just the rum or whatever you put in there. I don't know, vodka or rum, whatever your choice was, never did it for me. Now I did like White Russians. Those are always solid. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Marking the White Russians is quite an episode.
have you seen Big Lebowski? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was always a good one. But
I'm a huge Lebowski fan. Anything else we want to touch on? Anything with the upcoming stuff with Max Revenue or producer games or the recent LinkedIn posts blowing up? Anything on our radar that you want to touch
oh
on before we get out of here?
yeah, it's interesting. You did have a post that went bananas, still blowing up. And that's for us at least, or for you. So maybe some of you guys listening have get 10,000 likes a post or whatever. But we had something on a big hostile takeover kind of situation, right? Out in, I think, basically poached 300 or 200 employees. And I had a buddy text me 300, but he says their comp plan is crap. And he also says that they deserve it because they literally at these meetings were like telling employees, like, it was nothing about like, we want you to stay here. We want you to stay here. It was like, if you leave, this is what's going to happen. It was very much kind of like just old school 90s, stuff. So I think, I'm just an outside spectator on this stuff, but I think it's an underlying message to me of like if you're a producer out here, you're young, you're building your book, pick an agency. It's so hard right now because everyone's getting acquired and selling out, and that sucks when that happens. Now you could get acquired by a good company, but still, it's kind of still sucks because your commissions will be cut and all that stuff. But be extremely careful if you're going to make a move. I've also seen people like give up $1 million book, go to a new agency, start from scratch. The new agency gets acquired by the previous agency. Like that was a gut punch, like so we could do a whole topic probably of this whole little segment, but just be mindful, guys. Like as you're listening, if you're going to the new year, you're thinking about making a change, you're getting recruited, be extremely cautious. Like starting over, the grass isn't always greener. Maybe some of the headaches you're experiencing are worth it if you feel like it's not going to sell, like the agency your ad's not going to sell out or something like that.
Yeah, there's always two sides to the coin, right? I've also, the one I like is like, you know why the grass is greener on that side? It's because there's more shit over there. It's always great. Yeah, so I got this. I won't say who it's from. This is his response. Nepotism and cronyism at its finest. It all stems for there. I would short the stock if I were you. Arrogance stemming from the top down to completely useless regional managers who provide zero value. He went on to rip for a while, but I'll leave it there.
There we go.
So one of the shows, podcast slash YouTube shows that I'm considering is This Week in Insurance or Last Week in Insurance, depending on, like if I post it on Monday, just on whatever's going on. So like if somebody releases market report or there's some drama in the M&A world or, carrier pulls out of a state, no pun intended. That's what she said. Um, the like doing a take on the recent like what just happened. I know you're super busy, so you can't probably riff on it, but I think that's something that people would be interested in kind of like this new newsletter that we're doing, a weekly recap, kind of doing that but in podcast form and just keeping it to like 5-10 minutes. It's like, hey, here's what happened. And I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fun to jump on some of those with you at least and add my 2 cents. But
I would love it if you got time.
yeah. No, I mean,
And I'm just an idiot over here making content.
you're just producing something different than what I'm doing.
Flinging poo around the insurance world.
No, that'd be fun, dude. I would do that.
I showed Rachel the post and she's like, this is your wheelhouse. She's like, you're just good at talking and stirring the pot. And this is you. And I was like, that's fair.
Hey, man, everyone has a calling in life.
All right. I'm a gossip column in the insurance world. I'm creating the, what is that? What is those gossip magazines?
Like a tabloid?
Yeah. Insurance tabloid. Brilliant idea. I'm sure that's really going to go places.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, listen to there, guys. We appreciate you listening. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah to everyone listening. Yeah. Links will be in the show notes. If you want to try out our new app, Producer Games, link will be in the show notes. It is not for everybody. It is only for producers in the trenches who are making the dials and they want to build a habit of prospecting and tracking their numbers. A lot of you guys that doesn't apply to, so we realize it's not for everyone. And then also, if you want a free trial of Insurance Xdate, the link is in the show notes. If you want to subscribe to our plethora of newsletters that are coming out, you can do that as well in the show notes. And If you decide you want to go further down the rabbit hole with all of Micah's methodology of how to build a book of business from scratch with cold outbound, the link to the producer playbook is in the show notes as well. And with that, we bid you adieu. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Adios. Merry Christmas.